Standing tall in the waters of New York Harbor, the Statue of Liberty is more than just a monument, it is one of the most recognizable symbols of freedom and hope in the modern world. Every year, millions of people visit Liberty Island to gaze up at her towering figure, and for over a century, she has watched silently as ships, planes, and travelers from across the globe pass beneath her gaze. For immigrants arriving by sea, particularly in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Lady Liberty was the very first glimpse of America, a silent promise that they were entering a land where dreams could be reborn and lives could be reshaped. But behind this familiar image lies a far deeper story, one filled with symbolism, hidden meanings, and forgotten truths that many visitors never notice. The Statue of Liberty was a gift from France to the United States, unveiled in 1886. At face value, it was a celebration of friendship between the two nations and a commemoration of America's centennial of independence. But its sculptor, Frederick Auguste Bartholdi, and the engineers behind it, including Gustave Eiffel, the man who later designed the Eiffel Tower, envisioned much more than a decorative monument. They poured into its design a collection of codes and messages that were meant to inspire, to teach, and to remind the world of the ongoing struggle for liberty. Every piece of the statue, from the tip of the torch to the shackles at her feet, was created with purpose, carrying layers of meaning that still resonate today. To the casual observer, Lady Liberty is simply a woman in a robe holding a torch and a tablet. But pause for a moment and think, why a woman? Why the torch? Why the tablet? Why the broken chains at her feet that so many visitors overlook? Each of these choices is deliberate, and each speaks to an idea far greater than the statue itself. She was designed as a personification of liberty, a figure that transcends nations, languages, and cultures. The sculptor did not choose a king, a soldier, or a politician, he chose a female figure draped in classical robes, inspired by Roman goddesses of justice and freedom. She represents not one country's liberty, but the very concept of freedom itself, timeless and universal. What makes the statue fascinating is not just her commanding size, standing at over 300 feet from ground to torch, but the hidden details within her structure. The torch she raises is not merely a light, it is a symbol of enlightenment, the triumph of knowledge over ignorance. The crown on her head is not just decorative, its 7 rays represent the spread of freedom across the 7 continents and 7 seas. The tablet she holds is not random. It bears the date of America's Declaration of Independence, July 4, 1776, a reminder of where liberty first took root in the modern era. And at her feet, half hidden and rarely noticed, lie broken chains, shackles that symbolize the most striking feature of the Statue of Liberty, and perhaps the one most closely tied to her identity, is the torch she raises high above her head, a glowing beacon that has captured the imagination of the world for more than a century. To the casual eye, the torch is simply a symbol of light, shining out over the harbor as a welcome to those arriving in America. But its meaning runs far deeper. The official name of the statue is not merely Statue of Liberty as most people assume, but Liberty Enlightening the World. That name alone reveals the intention behind the torch. It was not built to illuminate physically, but to stand as a permanent reminder that knowledge, freedom, and progress are the light that guides humanity out of darkness. For the millions of immigrants who once sailed past the statue's torch on their way to Ellis Island, this flame represented the dawn of a new chapter, the possibility of escaping persecution, poverty, and tyranny. Yet the torch itself carries an untold story, for the one that shines today is not the same that Lady Liberty originally bore. The first torch, completed in 1886, was covered in copper and had small windows cut into it, intended to be illuminated from within. But this design quickly proved flawed. The windows allowed rain and moisture to seep in, corroding the structure and weakening it. By the early 20th century, the torch was badly deteriorated and leaking, forcing the United States to replace it. In 1986, during the statue's centennial restoration, the original torch was removed and placed in the museum on Liberty Island, replaced with a new torch she carries today, a brilliant flame sheathed in 24-karat gold leaf, designed to gleam brightly in the sunlight and reflect the rays of the sun even from miles away. This golden torch does not glow at night as many people assume, but in the daytime it burns brilliantly with the reflection of the heavens themselves. It is not a flame in the traditional sense, but a flame of enlightenment, meant to symbolize the eternal truth that liberty must shine through the darkness of oppression and ignorance. It tells us that freedom without wisdom is fragile, and wisdom without freedom is powerless. And so, when the sculptor Bartholdi chose the torch as the centerpiece of his colossal statue, he was making a statement not only to America but to the world, that liberty alone is not enough. Liberty must be paired with knowledge, progress, and enlightenment to truly guide humanity forward. The torch, therefore, is not just a welcoming beacon for immigrants or travelers, it is the heart of the statue's message, a reminder that light is not given, it must be carried, and it is the responsibility of every generation to keep it burning bright. Above Lady Liberty's calm and determined face rests one of the most misunderstood yet profoundly symbolic features of the statue, her crown. To many visitors, it appears to be nothing more than a decorative piece of her design, a simple headpiece befitting her majestic presence. But every element of this crown was deliberately crafted, and within it lies a powerful message that extends far beyond the shores of the United States. The crown bears 7 rays, each stretching outward like beams of sunlight. These are not random artistic flourishes, they represent the 7 continents and the 7 seas, a clear declaration that liberty and enlightenment are not meant for one people, one land, or one nation, but for the entire world. This design choice reminds us that freedom must radiate outward, crossing borders, cultures, and oceans, transcending the limits of geography to become a universal right. In this sense, Lady Liberty is not just America's guardian. She is a global figure, watching over all of humanity with a vision that spans continents. Adding to the crown's symbolic depth are its 25 windows, placed carefully between the rays. Historians interpret these openings as representations of gemstones or rays of light shining down upon the earth, signifying the eternal presence of enlightenment breaking through the clouds of ignorance. Standing inside the crown itself, visitors are able to look through these windows and experience a breathtaking view of New York Harbor and the city skyline, a perspective that evokes both awe and reflection. From that vantage point, one can feel the same sense of possibility that countless immigrants once felt as they gazed upward at the statue upon their arrival to a new land. But the crown also speaks to something deeper. It is a constant reminder that liberty, like sunlight, must shine everywhere, reaching even the darkest corners of the world. The sculptor Bartoldi's choice to include such universal symbolism at the very top of the statue was intentional. He wanted people to look upward, both literally and metaphorically, toward higher ideals, toward a vision of humanity united by freedom and knowledge. And yet, despite its deep symbolism, the crown is often overshadowed by the torch in popular imagination. Many never realize the crown is not just an ornament but a statement of purpose. Liberty is not limited, it is boundless. Its rays stretch outward infinitely, suggesting that the values embodied in Lady Liberty should not stop at America's borders but must continue spreading across oceans and lands, until they reach every person yearning to be free. In this way, the crown is both a halo and a sun, a mark of divinity and illumination, silently reminding the world that freedom is not the possession of a few but the birthright of all. While the torch and crown are the most visible features of the Statue of Liberty, her hands and feet hold some of the most profound and often overlooked symbols of all. In her left hand, Lady Liberty clutches a massive tablet of law, a rectangular stone inscribed with the Roman numerals July 4 MDCCLXXVI. To most, these numbers are simply decoration, but they carry immense historical weight, for they mark the date of the Declaration of Independence, July 4, 1776. By placing this inscription in her hand, the sculptor Bartoldi ensured that the statue would forever be tied to the very foundation of the United States, the belief that liberty and self-determination are not privileges, but unalienable rights. The tablet is a deliberate reminder that freedom is not arbitrary or fleeting, but anchored in law, principle, and history. It tells the world that liberty cannot exist without justice, and that justice must be recorded, remembered, and preserved. But if we travel downward, toward the base of the statue, we encounter something most visitors miss entirely: broken chains and shackles lying at her feet. Half hidden and rarely mentioned in popular discussions, these broken links may in fact be the statue's most radical and daring symbol. They represent the abolition of oppression and the triumph over slavery and tyranny. When the statue was first conceived in the 1870s, the United States was still healing from the Civil War, and slavery had been abolished only a few years earlier. For Bartoldi and his supporters, embedding the broken chains into the statue's design was a bold statement: liberty is not just a concept, it is a victory over injustice. Yet it is telling that these chains are placed at her feet, where many fail to notice them. Perhaps Bartoldi was reminding us that oppression is always something to be crushed, stepped upon, and left behind in history. Or perhaps he was also warning us that freedom, if not carefully guarded, can become so easily overlooked, trampled, and forgotten. The placement of the chains at her feet also forces us to look downward, contrasting with the upward reach of her torch and crown. Together, these symbols create a full circle of meaning. Liberty begins with breaking chains, is recorded and preserved in law, and must be lifted up as a light for the world. And yet, despite their deep meaning, the chains remain invisible to most tourists, overshadowed by the grandeur of the statue towering above. In this way, the broken shackles serve as a perfect metaphor for the struggle of liberty itself, hard-won, often ignored, but always essential. Lady Liberty's tablet and chains together remind us that freedom is not a gift handed down from above, it is earned, protected, and passed forward, carved into history and defended against those who would bind it again. Today, millions of tourists flock to Liberty Island each year, cameras in hand, eager to capture a photograph of the Statue of Liberty's towering figure against the New York skyline. To them, she is a postcard image, a backdrop for selfies, a checklist item on their travel itinerary. They admire her height, her beauty, and her iconic status as a symbol of the United States, but very few pause to consider the layers of meaning hidden within her design. Over the decades, the original purpose of the statue, the carefully embedded codes of enlightenment, law, justice, and liberation, have been overshadowed by a simplified narrative. Lady Liberty is nothing more than a smiling welcome sign for America. But the truth is far more powerful, and far more urgent. The torch was never meant to be only a beacon of hope for immigrants, it was designed as a permanent reminder that knowledge must guide freedom. The crown was not crafted as an ornament. Its 7 rays were a deliberate declaration that liberty must reach across all nations and all seas, a universal gift for humanity. The tablet was not just decoration, it recorded the birth of independence to remind future generations that liberty is anchored in law and principle, not in slogans or speeches. And the broken chains at her feet were not a hidden afterthought, they were a bold statement that freedom means nothing if oppression and slavery are allowed to rise again. These meanings, however, have slowly faded from public consciousness, forgotten in the rush of modern tourism and simplified storytelling. And yet, in forgetting them, we risk forgetting the true responsibilities of liberty itself. Freedom is not permanent, it is fragile, contested, and easily lost. The Statue of Liberty does not stand to celebrate a victory already won, she stands as a constant reminder of a fight that must continue in every era, in every nation, in every heart. Her hidden symbols whisper to us across time, telling us that liberty is more than a word, it is a light, a law, a shield, and a broken chain, all bound together in eternal struggle. When Bartholdi and his supporters created the statue, they envisioned not just a gift to America, but a message to the world that liberty, once achieved, must be guarded fiercely, and that the fight against ignorance, tyranny, and oppression is never truly over. So the next time we look at Lady Liberty, not through the lens of a camera, but with the eyes of understanding, we should remember that she is not just a statue, she is a story carved in stone and copper, a riddle of symbols waiting to be understood. And perhaps most importantly, she is a challenge to all of us to keep the flame alive, to spread the rays of freedom, to honor the law of justice, and to never let the chains of oppression rise again.